Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I have returned. Um, so welcome back to the channel. This is Wad-l Music, Media and Sport, and this is the real spill. So I know it's a late one tonight. I do apologise for that because this one has been a long time in the preparation. Um, as I say, it's a very special show and it's the first of a triple header tonight. So you'll get to see me 3 times over the night, taking you through bedtime, and hopefully, I'll still be here to wake you up tomorrow as well. So first off, I'm going to start off with quite a fun topic for you. I'm going to go in deep to break down every major off-season move for every single one of the 32 NFL franchises. So, yeah, as I say, it's going to take me a little bit of time to get through. If any of you are watching and do have any questions along the way or suggestions, do let me know. I do serve this to you all with a little bit of a caveat. That being said, obviously this is taking account none or very few of the transactions that have occurred over the last couple of hours, I should say. So this is as up to date as I can possibly get it. So yeah, with that being said, and without any further ado, I'm going to fly straight into it. So first off, we have team number one, the Arizona Cardinals. They were 3-14, and bottom of the NFC West last season, gone in 2025. Now, before we get started, just a shout out. So this comes to us from Kyle, the editor over at CBS Sports. So yeah, go give that man a shout out because he's done his due diligence, and now I'm just doing my best to give you mine as well. So as we say, the Arizona Cardinals there. So they have signed Isaac Somalo, offensive guard, for 3 years, $31.5 million. This is one I'm going to be harping on about to give you another piece of Scottish linguistics. I'm going to be going on about this probably over quite the next few shows at least. Running back Tyler Algier from the Falcons, 2 years and 12.25 million, possibly up to 16.25 million there as well. They've also got defensive lineman Roy Lopez, 2 years, 11.5 million, with 7 million guaranteed. Wide receiver Kendrick Bourne for 2 years, $10 million with 7.5 guaranteed. And Gardner Minshew on a 1 year, $5.75 million contract up to 8.25. They've also got offensive lineman Matt Pryor on a 1 year deal as well. And they've retained their punter there, Blake Gillikin, for 1 year at a rate of $2.68 million there. So that is the Arizona Cardinals. Going into the retained as well, you've also got defensive lineman LJ Collier, retained for 1 year, $2.5 million. And they have also retained kicker Chad Ryland on an extra 1 year deal as well. So that's the Arizona Cardinals. And looking down the line, obviously it's a fantastic addition bringing in Tyler Algier. He was bound to get starting money. And that's something I'll go into in a little bit more detail, as I say, when we get into episode 5. But as I say, this is the off-season moves thus far for your Arizona Cardinals, and I would grant them probably a C plus. Somalo, a solid guard, as I say, bringing in Algier, bringing in Gardner Minshew to at least compete for the starting job now that Kyler is obviously gone. But yeah, that's what I'll give the Cardinals. Would be a C plus on that. So now is the bit that I am in a lot of ways most excited to do, but in one or two ways probably not so excited as well. And that is Team 2, which is our Atlanta Falcons. So as I say, the year just gone, not what we wanted to see, a little bit disappointing in some ways, especially when you talk about coaching, which we seem to have obviously addressed big time in the off-season process as well. Thank you to Mr. Matt Ryan, President of Football, for all his due diligence on that one. So yeah, coaching and staff-wise, we seem to be in a much better position. As I say, we say that with all hope at the moment. It could all go south pretty quickly, but at the moment we're looking good. So yeah, let's really delve into the Atlanta Falcons and see what we have done. So here we go. So the Atlanta Falcons have signed wide receiver Jahan Dotson for 2 years, $15 million. We've also signed kicker Nick Folk for 2 years, $9 million, with only $4 million of that guaranteed. We've brought in one of the top 10 punters in the league in Jake Bailey for 3 years, $9 million, with $5 million of that to be guaranteed. We've also got some homecoming boys there, wide receiver Olamide Zacchaeus, whose terms have not yet been disclosed. And then we're also getting a 1-year deal on returning tight end Austin Hooper for 1 year and $3.25 million. Now, we've also brought in edge Cameron Thomas for 1 year, $3.1 million. So again, just shoring up on the edge, giving a little bit of competition there as well. Of course, the big one there being the vet minimum $1.3 million for a 1-year deal on quarterback and former Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. And that is someone who I'm going to be dissecting in great detail for you all in a 3-part mini-series coming up. So, as I say, that's something you all will have to look forward to as well going forward. And then we've also signed linebacker Christian Harris. And again, the terms have not been disclosed. And we've also retained Kyle Pitts, as we said before, on the 1 year, $15.045 million franchise tag going forward as well. Now, that's a little bit up to date, a little bit out of date, I should say, because there have been some movings and some shakings, so to speak, in the last obviously few hours and over today. So I'm going to break those down for you as well. So Jake Matthews we have restructured $14 million of his contract, which will free us up $10.5 million with that restructure. So we went into today playing with around about 23 million or so in available cap space. And we have used it quite effectively, in my opinion. So I'm going to go and tell you about who the new additions will be. So first off, you know the Falcons' propensity to bring home homegrown talent from that great state of Georgia. So yeah, they've reportedly signing former UGA standout Channing Tindall, linebacker there from the Georgia Bulldogs, former Cardinal and Dolphin. We've also brought in Chris Williams, former Bears defensive lineman, and he's a big old boy. To not put it so kindly, he's a load in the middle of the field, which is something that a lot of people were wanting for this defense. And again, when you're talking about value, that's a good value pickup as well. As I say, we're not spending a lot of money on these guys, so the turnaround's pretty good as well. In addition to that, we are also bringing in another former Bill Callahan lineman. That is centre Corey Levin on a 1-year deal from the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, they worked together back in Tennessee, so that's a commodity that Coach Callahan's going to know well as well. And then you have probably the biggest news of today when you're talking about Georgia boys, especially, is that we're bringing home another Georgia Bulldog. Marietta Georgia's own Azeez Ojulari, former Giant. I have liked this guy since he first came into the league, and most recently for the Philadelphia Eagles as well. So he is going to bolster up that edge, obviously in place of James Pierce Jr. So with all that being said, that is what I've got for you in terms of the Atlanta Falcons for now. So moving on to Team 3, which would be the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this comes with a bit of a caveat. The Ravens would have got around about a B. Sorry, my final grading for the Falcons, I would give a solid B, because we've got Jahan Dotson, we've got Tua coming in, and apart from that, we've made good value pickups, good quality pickups for the money that we're spending as well. So you can't really complain at that too much at all. So anyway, as we say, on with Baltimore, who, like us, were 8-9, second place in the AFC North in 2025. And this is what the Baltimore Ravens have got for us thus far. Now, obviously, as I explained, it does come with a caveat that I've had to change my grade before presenting the show to you tonight, because, as we all know by now, the Ravens had agreed to give 2 first-round picks to the Las Vegas Raiders for defensive edge Max Crosby. They will have no further comment on it at this time, but they have decided to back out. Now, I surmise that this would be because not only was it the failed physical, but also I feel like Baltimore know the position that they're in with the amount of players that they've lost, and also they want to now get those picks back, 2 first-round picks in 2026 and 7 respectively. So they wanted to obviously do their due diligence there, but they have made a free agent signing off the back of that, which is again on the defensive edge, and that is Trey Hendrickson. And from what I know about this deal, and shout out to my brother Magnus from the Regulators podcast over on EFN, that looks to be somewhere in the region of 4 years and $112 million for that one. So, with that being said, the Baltimore Ravens list is quite short. So they have signed offensive guard John Simpson for 3 years, $30 million, while retaining quarterback Tyler Huntley for 2 years and $11 million. So quite a short one. Obviously, they didn't get Max, which is, as I say, would have pushed them up into the B sort of neighborhood. But I'll probably give them a C plus, B minus, given that they're still shored up the edge, bringing in a stud in Trey Hendrickson all the same. I can say that I feel a little bit better for Joe Burrow, but not too much. I feel like he's still going to get beaten up in that AFC North, being as competitive as it is. So yeah, that's Baltimore for you. And now we'll get into a playoff team, that being the number 4 team, the Buffalo Bills. They went 12-5 this year, passed good enough for second in the AFC East, and went all the way on to the divisional round of the AFC playoffs as well. So quite a good season from the Bills, all being said, although with the caveat that, once again, Josh Allen was unable to get it done when the lights shined the brightest when the playoffs came. So that being said, he now has a number 1 receiver. So the Buffalo Bills, they traded for DJ Moore via the Buffalo Bills. The Chicago Bears. That was a typo. He came from the Bears to the Bills. They also signed D. Alford from my Falcons for 3 years, up to $21 million. Just over $10 million of that would be guaranteed money. And they've also signed quarterback Kyle Allen to back up his brother from another mother there, Josh. 2 years, 4.1 million up to 6.1 million guaranteed. They've also got 2 names on the retain list as well, that being centre Connor McGovern at 4 years and 52 million. 32 million of that would be guaranteed. And then you've tight end Dawson Knox on another 3-year extension as well. So just a stud of a tight end. As I say, bringing in D. Alford, more on getting DJ Moore as a number 1 threat for Josh Allen there. So as I say, that's getting a B plus in my book. They've shored up in a lot of areas they had to. So yeah, the Buffalo Bills should be a team in a good position. As I say, I expect them to have another good finish in 2026 as well. So I feel like that AFC East is definitely going to be competitive. And now on to Team 5, which is one of our division rivals down in the South, and that being the Carolina Panthers, or the Pussycats, if you're feeling spicy. So let's bring up the Carolina class thus far and talk about that for you. So they have brought in edge Jalen Phillips, 4 years and $120 million, which is a fantastic signing. And they've also brought in Devin Lloyd from 3 years and $45 million, with $25 million guaranteed. Bringing in Kenny Pickett as well from that QB disaster we call the Cleveland Browns, for 1 year up to $7.5 million with $4 million guaranteed. And they've also made some assurances on the offensive line as well, bringing in offensive centre Luke Fortner for 1 year up to 4.75 million, as well as offensive tackle Stone Forsyth, although the terms of that have not yet been disclosed. They've also made some steps to retain some talent as well. LeBrian Roy on the edge, Isaiah Simmons, linebacker, David Moore, wide receiver, cornerback Robert Rochelle, and cornerback Akeli Evans. Those last two on 1 year deals. The rest of the terms for those boys have not yet been disclosed. So I would have said C if I was only looking at the retentions list. But this is a good B class, as I say. Jalen Phillips is a stud. Devin Lloyd's still got something in the tank, I think. As I say, Kenny Pickett, solid. Back up there, as I say, over in Carolina as well. So, yeah, as I say, are they going to win the South again? Hopefully not, personally speaking. But yeah, trying to show it up in the right ways. So I respect it immensely. That being said as well. And that is your Carolina Panthers. So the next team that we're going to go to is team number 6. And that is the Chicago Bears. So they were 11-6, won the NFC North. Again, another divisional team. And to go back and shout out the Panthers, they were 8-9, same as us, but they did win the NFC South and reaching the wild card. So yeah, hopefully that's a position that we can be in the season to come. So team number 6, as I say, the Chicago Bears, your NFC North champions. And let's take a look at their class. So when you're talking about Chicago, here's what you're looking at. So you've got safety Kobe Bryant signed 3 year, $40 million contract. Linebacker Devin Bush at 3 years and $30 million. Then you've got defensive tackle Neville Gallimore at 2 years and $12 million. Wide receiver and returner Khalif Raymond for 1 year and $6.1 million. Then you've got defensive back Cam Lewis and another ex-Falcon and edge Contavious Street. Now you've also traded for Garrett Bradbury from the Bears to shore up that offensive line. And you've also brought in some retentions in place. So you've got Braxton Jones, your offensive tackle, on a 1 year $5 million, up to $10 million potentially as well. You've got linebacker DeMarco Jackson on a 2 year 7.5, which could be up to 10.5. You've got quarterback Case Keenum, 2 year $5.5 million, potentially up to 9. And then, as I say, you've got Daniel Hardy as well, the edge there, 1 year $5 million. So if I were to grade the Bears, it's a C. There's no names that really stand out, but again, the Bears are a playoff team, so I don't think they really had to do that much to shore up the talent that they already had. As I say, look for them to go wide receiver in the draft now, potentially, given up that they've just given DJ Moore to the Bills. But again, that's all remains to be seen at this point. So let's keep rolling now. So we have for you team number 7 in the Cincinnati Bengals. So we're going from the NFC North to the AFC North. These guys went 6-11 in 2025, which was good enough for only 3rd place. So with that being said, let's take a look and see who your new Bengals are in Cincinnati. So again, quite a short list there for the Cincinnati Bengals. What you have is Boye Mafe, an edge which has been signed now for 3 years and $60 million. And you've also brought in safety Brian Cook for 3 years and $42.5 million. You've also retained offensive guard, I should say, Dalton Reisner for 1 year. You're only giving him $5 million as well. And a shout out to the First Lady of AFN there, Maggie T. It's good to have you in the house. As I say, I wanted to be a little bit more diplomatic because we've been so Falcon-centric, so I'm opening it up a little bit going around the league. So as I say, we've gotten as far as Cincinnati so far. And it's a small class, but I can see what they're doing. As I say, shore up the edge, obviously build that offensive line to protect Joe Burrow because he's in a lot of danger this year again. probably the most sacked quarterback in the league, and unless they address this offensive line, that's something that's going to continue. So, I mean, that puts them sort of in a C plus, B minus sort of territory for in so few moves as they've made. But yeah, as I say, they're definitely another team that's improving. I don't know whether or not we can say that they'll compete in that AFC North, but yeah, that's how I feel about the Cincinnati Bengals. And staying in that division there, we're now going to talk about the 8th team, which is the only team in the AFC North that finished below the Bengals, and that would be the 5-12 Cleveland Browns. So let's take a look at the Cleveland class over the last couple of days then and break that down for you all. So the Cleveland Browns have signed offensive guard Zion Johnson, who was a target I did have for my Falcons at one point, for 3 years and $49.5 million. They've also brought in veteran centre Elgton Jenkins for 2 years, $24 million, and a high guarantee there of $20 million of that, which, you know, that's warranted for a centre of the quality and experience that Jenkins brings. You've also got linebacker Quincy Williams for 2 years and up to $17 million. You've traded for Titus Howard, who is a solid offensive line option. He's very flexible between guard and tackle, as it says there as well. You've also retained Ronnie Hickman, safety, second round tender. So it's a 1 year, $5.76 million guarantee. And you've also retained offensive guard Tevin Jenkins. So as I say, you're doing everything you can offensive line wise. You've got the Jenkins brothers, so to speak, in the interior of that offensive line. So yeah, I'm going to give this again probably a B minus. As I say, throwing Zion Johnson into the mix as well, you can see where Cleveland's looking at improving, and it's about shoring up, making sure that they can move the football. And with that being said, now's a team that I don't really particularly want to talk about, but I will. And they're not even a division rival, but I just hate them. But it is my mum's team, so it was one of the options that I had when I was choosing my own team, and that is quote unquote America's team in the Dallas Cowboys, 7-9-1, finishing runners up in the NFC East in 2025. So let's take a look at these boys then. So you have signed safety Jalen Thompson for 3 years and $23 million. You've also brought in safety PJ Locke for 1 year and $6 million. You've signed defensive tackle Otito Ogbonia for 1 year and $3 million. And you've also, for an undisclosed amount of cash there, you've brought in quarterback back up to Dak. Now you've got Sam Howell, former Washington commander there, who's a little bit of a journeyman at this point, but I mean, a solid backup nevertheless. The big news so far, I would say, for the Cowboys off-season is that you've traded for defensive edge Rashawn Gary, who, as I say, we've seen a lot of his work from Green Bay over the years. So he's going to be someone who's going to add a little bit. It's not going to recover fully what you lost with trading Micah Parsons out, but as I say, it's definitely a solid option to have and put on that now evolving new look defensive front there in Dallas. And you've also retained wide receiver George Pickens would be the big ones. So you're paying your 1 year franchise tag of $27.228 million, guaranteed money as well there. You've also retained kicker Brandon Aubrey, the second round tender, which makes complete sense given that he's probably top 3 kickers in the league. You've also retained edge Sam Williams at 1 year, $3 million. You've tendered cornerback Josh Butler for a year at 1.075. And you have also got cornerback Body Stewart there as well for just over $1 million on a 1 year deal. There is one more thing that I did see earlier on today, and that is that the Cowboys have also made another trade out, sending veteran defensive lineman Solomon Thomas over to the Titans. Well, he will rejoin his former defensive coordinator Robert Saleh, or I should say head coach. It's a late round pick swap, so the teams are not. It's not a big risk, big reward sort of trade. But yeah, it's definitely a win for Tennessee. I feel like Solomon Thomas is a solid sort of depth piece, given the amount of sort of pieces that they've lost as well. And a shout out to the home HQ as well. AFN leaving a nice comment there, just popping up to say boo. But yeah, as I say, it's like it's an interesting situation when you're talking about Dallas. They're always that team who's on the cusp of something great and never quite get there. But yeah, that's how I feel about the Cowboys. They're in that sort of C tier. But you never quite know what's going to happen in the NFC East. Can they catch Philadelphia? I think they're going to have to make some more improvements before they do that. But they're certainly good enough to hold on to second place for me. So we'll see what happens with the rest of this off-season process. Is all that I can really definitively say for Dallas at the moment. So with that being said, let's move on now to Team 10 and head out west. The Denver Broncos, 14-3, your AFC West champions. They lost the AFC Championship game to those New England Patriots in the 2025 season as well. So as obviously one of the first, or rather last 4 teams in the league in the playoff picture, they didn't really have, again, that much to really do, in my opinion, to shore up what they already have. And at the moment, they've not made any signings, and I didn't expect them to really splash the cash too much. But they have made some extensions here as well, which has eaten up some of their cap room there. So they've retained running back J.K. Dobbins for 2 years and 20 million, with 8 of that guaranteed. You've also got linebacker Justin Strunad at 3 years and 18 million. You've got tight end Adam Troutman for 3 years and 17 million. You've got linebacker Alex Singleton for 2 years and 15.5 with 11 million guaranteed. And then again, you've got more backup quarterbacks getting snapped off the market there, with Sam Ehlinger coming in to back up Bo Nix for 1 year at $2 million. Now, with that being said, again, I'm going to give this probably a B minus. They're not a team who's in a position where they have to massively do a lot of wiggling around to get over the hump. But as I say, no signings announced as yet. So Broncos fans, if you do hear anything, do let me know on that one. But at the moment, I can't really comment too much. So with that being said, we're almost a third of the way through the league now as well. So kind of flying through it. But I wanted to just make sure that I gave you guys due diligence and make sure that I'm paying attention, not just to my dirty birds, but make sure the whole league is cooking. And let's be honest and fair here, it has been a very exciting off season. So we'll keep things in the NFC North, and we'll go from 4th to 2nd to the 9-7-1 Green Bay Packers, who reached the 2025 wild card. Now, with that being said, Green Bay is another interesting one because they're a playoff team right on the cusp of greatness. I feel like losing Romeo Dobbs is something that if I was them, I wouldn't have wanted to do necessarily. But I'm going to break down their moves for you. So they've signed cornerback Benjamin St-Juste for 2 years, $10 million, up to 10.5. So I feel like that's a fantastic pickup. I love me some St-Juste. I feel like he is a solid corner. And a bit of a veteran at this point for only having played the 6 years that he's been in the league. They've also brought in wide receiver returner Sky Moore on a 1-year deal there as well. Now, probably the one for me, which is your biggest move, is bringing in Zaire Franklin, linebacker from the Colts. I feel like he's going to give you a big presence. He's going to essentially replace Quay Walker and give you that sort of voice in the huddle that's really sort of taking control of things and taking care of business, so to speak, because that Zaire Franklin is a guy that can get that done for me. And then we want to talk retentions. You've got offensive tackle Sean Ryan at 3 years, 33. Running back Chris Brooks, 2 years, 4.85 mil. Offensive tackle Darian Kennard, 1 year up to 3.75 mil. Then you've got linebacker Nick Neiman for 1 year, 2.25 mil, potentially up to 3. And you've also got linebacker Christian Welch there on a 1 year deal as well. So a lot of competition added into that linebacker room in Green Bay. As I say, the Zaire Franklin and Benjamin St-Juste picks were superb for me because it's shoring up what is a sturdy and solid defense over there in Green Bay. So yeah, again, I can see them making the playoffs next season. The NFC North's a tricky one because you've got the Vikings, you've got the Lions. It's certainly a competitive division. But yeah, I see no reason to believe why Green Bay couldn't get it done. So again, they're in that sort of B- tier where they're just doing enough. But as I say, the star power of Franklin and just that would push them up to a solid B for me. So right in the mix. Green Bay's moving well, and should be a team to view with some intimidation if you're in the NFC North going into 2026. So now let's come or head from the north to the south and from the NFC to the AFC, but we'll stay in the playoffs for now. So Team 13 would be the Houston Texans, 12-5 record in 2025. It's good enough for second place in the AFC South, and as we say, another playoff team having reached the divisional rounds as well. So what have we got to talk about in terms of the Houston Texans? So you made probably what would be the most wise decision that you could have made, in my opinion, and I will get into that in just a little sec. So here is your Houston Texans class. So bringing in offensive lineman Braden Smith for 2 years and $20 million there. Edge Dominique Robinson for 1 year and up to $4 million. You've got linebacker Jake Humnell for 2 years, and you've got edge Logan Hall for 2 years as well. Obviously, you have also traded for David Montgomery from the Lions, which was a great pickup and should keep the running offense over there in Houston ticking quite nicely. And you've also got Kai Kroger there, the punter. So that just shores up your punting game and gives you a little more versatility in terms of your special teams as well. The biggest retention, as I say, this is where I'm talking sense, is you retain Danielle Hunter. As I say, he's probably top 5, top 8 in that mix when you're talking edge defenders in the league. So yeah, 1 year extension, but just over 40 mil. And it does obviously 30 million if that's guaranteed, but for a player of that caliber, you can't really go wrong. You've also retained offensive guard Ed Ingram, kicker Kaimi Fairbairn, and tight end Dalton Schultz. Those on 3, 2, and 1 year deals respectively. Offensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, offensive tackle Trent Brown, and you've also got defensive tackle Naquan Jones there, retaining in Houston. So that kind of sums up the Houston Texans. Again, a few nice pickups in certain areas where I feel like they needed some help. Getting David Montgomery was a signing and a half for them as well, but it's not going to change the landscape in the AFC South for me. So again, is it going to be the move that gets them to first place? I don't think so. But with that being said, they're ticking along. They're another one of these teams that they made the playoffs. They're just looking for maybe depth, consistency, and things like that. So that's where I'm at as it pertains to the Houston Texans. Now let's talk about Team 14 and staying in the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts, who again went 8-9 this year, finishing third down in the South. So with that being said, let's get into the Colts class and see what we're playing with. So from my understanding, Indianapolis was another one who had quite a small class. And just looking at this photo here, that does confirm it there. So when you're talking about the Colts moves so far, as I say, retaining Arden Key, signing Arden Key edge there for 2 years and up to $20 million. 11 of that will be guaranteed. And then you've got retentions on Alec Pierce, which had to be done. Makes complete sense. That was another target that I had for the Falcons. I feel he's certainly a player that can play to a high level. Um, and his ceiling is as I say, is out of bounds. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then, as I say, retaining quarterback Daniel Jones, but putting him under the 1 year transition tag. So 37.833 million for that. And you will be transitioning from him, but as I say, a solid option to have behind a solid Colts O line as well. So yeah, as I say, that's another team that I would probably put in that C plus mix, just enough. But they're a team who really should be doing more. So I can't really go any higher than a C. I can't really go into the realm of a B for Indianapolis just yet. But as I say, there's a hell of a lot more of free agency still left to go. So we ain't seen nothing yet. And now let's crack into Team 20, and that being the Jacksonville Jaguars. Or sorry, Team 15. I've got them here. So they were 13-4, and still in the AFC South this time, your champions, reaching the AFC wildcard in 2025. And another team who's not made that many moves, like Denver. So Jaguars fans, if you can enlighten me, if there are some signings that you've made that I haven't yet got here, but it's all retentions so far for me. Cornerback Montaric Brown for 3 years and $33 million. You've also got linebacker Dennis Gardeck, although the terms have not been yet disclosed. And then you've got tight end Quentin Morris for 1 year, $3 million. So I can't really go higher than a D. None of those players are really standing out to me. I know that you won, so again, there's not really much room for improvement. But you didn't win the Super Bowl, so you should still be looking to get better, in my view. And Jacksonville's not really done much there to improve. So I would say that. We will stay in the AFC now for your next team, Team 16, but we will head out west to talk about a team we all love to hate, the Kansas City Chiefs, who were third in the AFC West in 2025. Going 6-11. Now, we have asked the question on numerous occasions and on numerous places, are the Kansas City Chiefs still a team to be concerned about? And I would say that yes, they are, because although Travis Kelce has been retained 1 year, 12 million, possibly up to 15, and you're also retaining Tyquan Thornton, that is the guys that you kind of needed to retain to still be a threat, given the fact that they've also added Kenneth Walker, 3 years, up to $45 million with 28.5 just over guaranteed. Safety Alohi Gilman, 3 years, 24.75, 15 of that being guaranteed. And then you've got the Swiss Army knife, defensive tackle and fullback Khyiris Tonga, 3 years, 21 million, 14 million of that guaranteed. So I feel like, as I say, Kansas City are shoring up a lot in terms of their weapons. Some of these sort of, as I say, I use the term Swiss Army knives, these versatile players who can be effective. As I say, I had a feeling that Travis Kelce wasn't quite done, that he had more to give in this league as well. So yeah, all credit to the Kansas City Chiefs. As I say, it's probably a C plus. It's nothing that we didn't expect. With what it would have been if obviously until you add in the Kenneth Walker, the third signing, which pushes it over the edge and into B tier for me. So yeah, I'll give the Kansas City Chiefs a B at the moment. As I say, you can't get better than a Super Bowl winning running back, and he's coming in to try and revitalize and put another spark in that Kansas City offense. So we'll see what happens. And now we're staying in division for Team 17, and we're into the second half of the league now. So we can start to shore it up and bring it home again. As I say, in the next episode, I'm going to be going more in depth into the Falcons move specifically, but I wanted to show you my due diligence, as I say, and break down every team in the league and have a little fun with that. So as I say, Team 17 is your number one pick, 3-14, and bottom of the AFC West in 2025, that being the Las Vegas Raiders. And you have to roll that R, don't you? So let's talk about Vegas then. So, you know what's going to happen with the number one pick. They're going to bring in quarterback Fernando Mendoza from the national champion Indiana Hoosiers. And who thought they'd be saying that? Just madness. But yeah, they did acquire Tyrone Johnson from the Bills via trade, the defensive back. You've also signed Tyler Linderbaum, probably the best offensive lineman in the free agents class. You got edge Quitty Pay, linebacker Quay Walker, linebacker N'Kobe Dean, wide receiver Jalen Naylor, and you've got kicker Matt Gay as well. So just a fantastic class of signings there. And you've also made some vital retentions as well. You're retaining Eric Stokes for another 3 years. You've got Malcolm Monroe at 1 year, Thomas Booker the fourth. That's a tender, and another tender on offensive lineman Jordan Meredith there. Your offensive centre, Will Putman, is also an exclusive rights tender, and you have the same for edge Charles Snowden there as well. So that is the Las Vegas Raiders, and although you were the worst team in the league in 2025, you therefore had some nice cap room, and I must say you've made the most of it. So I'm going to give an A, borderline A plus, to the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like they were in the position to really do some damage with the money that they had, and I feel like that goes without saying that they've really doubled down on making their money count, getting the right guys in, as I say. So shout out to the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like this has been a good off-season class for them so far, and we'll see what happens when 2026 rolls around. And then let's finish out the AFC West just while we're here. So, Team 18 would be the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, when you're talking about the Chargers, it's another sort of what if, because I know they had a lot of big injuries throughout the season, especially on that offensive line, which didn't exactly help Justin Herbert stay vertical. But with that being said, they did go 11-6, finishing second in the AFC West, reaching the AFC wild card as well. So you can't really say it was too bad of a season for all the struggles that they did have in certain places over in Los Angeles. So with that being said, let's take a look at the Chargers class thus far. So here we are. The Los Angeles Chargers signed offensive center Tyler Biadasz for 3 years, $30 million. Tight end Charlie Kolar for 3 years, 24.3. They also got offensive guard Cole Strange for 2 years, $13 million with 9 guaranteed, and fullback Alec Ingold for 2 years and 75 million. Some good signings there, especially shoring up that offensive line, which has been a position of need. Getting Tyler Biadasz in there as well, in between those two big tackles. I just hope that obviously they heal the right way, and your offense should be just great there. You've also retaining their TR Tart, 3 years up to 37.5 mil, with 20 million of that guaranteed. You're also retaining edge Khalil Mack and bringing him back for 1 more year. Offensive tackle Trevor Penning, the former Saint, obviously 1 year, 4.5. You've also got an exclusive rights tenor on running back Kimani Vidal, and you have extended also running back Jarrett Patterson. So all that being said, I'll give that a B plus, given that you're shoring up your biggest area of weakness in LA, which for me again is that offensive line, which old team obviously a QB that got pretty banged up in a few exchanges there as well. So for the next team, we're going to stay in Los Angeles. We're going to go from the Chargers to the Rams and break down their latest moves. So you are talking about the team that went 12-5, finishing second in the NFC West, going all the way to the NFC Championship game before losing to eventual champions and divisional rivals in the Seattle Seahawks. So let's break down the Rams and see where they are right now for you. So when you're talking about the Los Angeles Rams, Their biggest move thus far has been to trade for Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs for 4 years and $124 million, one of the biggest moves of the free agency class or free agency period to thus far to speak of. They also went, well, if we're getting one corner from Kansas City, why not get two? Signing former Chief and free agent Jalen Watson on a 3-year, $51 million contract with $34 million of that guaranteed. Also bringing in long snapper Joe Cardona for 2 years and retaining Cam Curl on a 3-year, $36 million deal and tight end Tyler Higbee for 2 years and $8 million. Now, with that being said, I liked the defensive pairing of McDuffie and Watson over in KC. So you're going to get a lot of good stuff there. And then Cam Curl as well, extending, just gives you even more weapons in terms of that defensive secondary as well. So good things from Los Angeles. Nothing especially mind-blowing outside of the McDuffie trade. But I feel like he's going to make a very, very, very good Ram. So I feel like B-. Again, I'm talking about purely off of the McDuffie one alone. The rest of the class, as I say, not mind-blowing, but you're doing what I would expect you to do. So, yeah, not another team that doesn't need to improve in a lot of areas. So we'll see how 2026 treats you, with that being said. So, on to Team 20 now, and that being the Miami Dolphins. 7-10, they went in 2025, finishing third over in the AFC East. So let's have a look for you at the Dolphins class. So when you're talking about the Miami Dolphins, again, they had another small one, signing kicker Zane Gonzalez from the Atlanta Falcons. So it's obviously, he was consistent in Atlanta, so you know what you're getting. He's a talented kicker in my book. He's also retained tight end Greg Dulcich on 1 year, $3.25 million deal. And the biggest move, and this is one that I'll certainly question because I'm going to give the Falcons a D. Obviously, after sending Tua to ourselves in Atlanta, you needed to shore up the gap in the quarterback room, and you've decided to opt for a $45 million guarantee on a 3-year, $67.5 million contract on former Packers quarterback Malik Willis there. So as I say, he may well have been the option for the Falcons. I don't feel like the scheme in Miami is necessarily going to suit him. So I don't think a 3-year deal was maybe the right call there. So that's why I'm giving you a D. But with all that being said, I've been wrong before and I could be wrong again. So, but at the moment, I don't feel it warrants much higher than that because I feel like Malik Willis, I don't think Miami's going to revive his career in the way that he thinks, perhaps. So with that being said now, let's crack on. So we're returning to the NFC, and this will be the NFC North for Team 21, the Minnesota Vikings. They were 9-8, finishing third in the NFC North in 2025. So again, another team that was in the mix, but fell just short of playoffs there when you're talking about the Vikings. And now we'll look at their class for you. So Minnesota. They signed cornerback James Pierre for 2 years and $8.5 million. They've also retained linebacker Eric Wilson at 3 years and $22.5 million. They've retained long snapper Andrew DePaula, one of the more consistent long snappers in the league, for 1 year, $1.725 guaranteed. Defensive lineman Jalen Redmond has been exclusive rights tendered. Ivan Pace Jr. has also had a right of first refusal tender placed upon him. Linebacker Bo Richter has an exclusive rights tender as well, and the same with running back Xavier Scott. So with that being said, nothing especially mind-blowing from Minnesota, so I'll give them probably a C-. James Pierre does suit the style of defense that they're playing. But yeah, I can't really say too much more than that. There's not been a hell of a lot of moves out of Minnesota thus far. And that's kind of why I fall where I do. So now we are on to the next team, and we're heading back out east and crossing back over to the AFC. So we are going to talk about the reigning defending AFC champion, New England Patriots, going 14-3 in the season just past, before narrowly losing the Super Bowl, or not so narrowly, I should say. I was trying to be respectful, but let's be honest, that Seattle defense was the truth. But yeah, let's break down those Patriots then, because I can't give those boys no love, no kind of good things ever. That's just how we do. I will say no more than that. But yeah, let's take a look at the New England Patriots. So, biggest moves are probably for me those two at the top, unquestionably. So they brought in wide receiver Romeo Doubs from the Packers at 4 years, 68 or potentially up to $80 million. And they've also signed former Titans guard, offensive guard Elijah Vera Tucker for 3 years and 42 million, possibly up to 48. Now they've also signed edge Draymond Jones for 3 years, 29.5 million, or sorry, 39.5 million. Fullback Reggie Gilliam for 3 years and up to 12 million, with half of that guaranteed. And you've also signed a 1-year deal on outside linebacker Jesse Luketa. In terms of retentions, there's only one to speak of, that being a 7.4 million and 2-year extension on quarterback Tommy DeVito, your backup there to Drake May. So again, that's a B plus. Just given Romeo Doubs and Elijah Vera Tucker's tenure in the league, their skill set, and the level that they've played to over the years, I feel like Romeo Doubs is going to be a fantastic option for Drake May. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of falling where I am. As I say, B plus there for New England. And now let's move on to another team that I dislike intensely. But if I promise to do all 32 teams, then I may as well stick with the ethos and really tell you how I feel about every team and what they've been up to. So here's Team 23 now, the 6-11 New Orleans Saints, who finished bottom of the NFC South during the 2025 season. And let's take a look into what they've got for you. So when you're talking about New Orleans, their biggest move would obviously be the one that stings us Falcons here, and that is that he will be returning home. Caden Ellis, Mike linebacker from our Falcons, will be returning to New Orleans. So he would hide a headline, obviously, for me, that class. 3 years and $33 million there. They've also went and signed offensive guard David Edwards for 4 years and $61 million. Running back Travis Etienne from the Jaguars from 4 years and $52 million. Punter Ryan Wright for 4 years and $14 million. And then tight end Noah Fant on a 2-year, $8.75 million deal. And you've also retained defensive tackle John Ridgway for 2 years and $6.2 million. Now, I'm going to say this is probably, again, a B from the Saints. David Edwards is a solid guard. Obviously, bringing Caden Ellis, who's a consistent sideline-to-sideline mover. He's a consistent tackler as well. He's going to get you those numbers. And then, obviously, adding in Travis Etienne, who's a talented running back. As I say, Jacksonville being what it is, they're only just getting into the mix, but now they've given him his rookie deal, so to speak, to really get to find his ceiling, potentially. But now, as I say, you'll have the chance to play in New Orleans, and we'll have the pleasure of seeing him twice a year, and having to see Caden twice a year again as an enemy as well, which I'm not too happy about. But yeah, with all that being said, I'll give New Orleans probably a B plus. And now, with that being said, we're staying in the NFC, but we're coming out of the South and we're heading out east. So we are on now to Team 24, and one of the worst teams in the league consistently. This time the 4-13, bottom of the NFC East, the New York Giants. So let's dissect those G-men a little bit and see what they've been able to do thus far. So, the New York Giants have signed tight end Isaiah Likely for 3 years and $40 million. They also brought in who I felt was probably the best linebacker in the free agency class in Tremaine Edmonds for 3 years, $36 million. You've also got Jordan Stout, punter, coming in on a 3-year deal as well. They've also signed Greg Newsome on a 1-year, $10 million contract there as well. You've got Darius Washington, the safety, coming in on a 1-year deal as well. You've also got kicker Jason Sanders and fullback Patrick Ricard. That is a fun one when you really want to break it down, because the Giants have signed him to the highest contract in fullback history. So yeah. In addition to that, we could also have your retentions, which in this off-season process have been Jermaine Illuminor, 3 years, $79 million extension at offensive tackle. Linebacker Micah McFadden on a 1-year. Wide receiver Isaiah Hudgens. Outside linebacker Caleb Murphy. And cornerback Art Green. The terms have not been disclosed on those, and you're also retaining Chris Manhertz, tight end, on a 1-year deal as well. As I say, with all that breaking down for me, I think Tremaine Edmonds, Greg Newsome, or Darius Washington, Jason Sanders, Isaiah Likely are all solid pickups. I think if I was to try and put a grade on that, I'd put it around B-. No world beaters, but certainly when you're in the position that the New York Giants are, where you're not competing, you're bottom of your division, then you need to make some improvement. You need to shore up. And I feel like that's what the New York Giants are trying to do. So I'll give them a B- for effort. We'll say that much. And let's keep things in New York, or rather East Rutherford, New Jersey, and go to the other team. This time, the team in white and green, that being the New York Jets, who were 1 game worse than the Giants, if you can believe. Bottom of the AFC East this time at 3-14. Now let's break it down for you. 7 teams left to go after this, and I can't, as I say, having a lot of fun. It's taken a lot to get to this stage where I can really go in detail and break down the entire league for you, but I'm having a blast. I really am, you guys. So I'm glad for anyone who's taken the time to join me and tune in. I'm thrilled. So that being said, the New York Jets then. Linebacker Demario Davis from the Saints on a 2-year, $22 million contract. You've also brought in David Onyemata from the Falcons, so another guy that I've got to tip the cap to and tell him that it's been real fun, and we'll see you real soon. You've also brought in Edge Kingsley and Igbari. Say you've got a safety with Dane Belton and a cornerback in Nashawn Wright. Those are a pair of 1-year deals. You've also brought in fullback Andrew Beck and Dane Belton, as I say, that is a duplicate there. And you've also traded for Geno Smith via the Raiders and Minkah Fitzpatrick via the Dolphins. Now, the Fitzpatrick is probably the biggest move outside of Davis for me. I feel like he is a great safety, even now as he gets a little bit up there in age. He's got that experience factor that he can bring to some of the younger defensive backs. So yeah, I feel like it's a solid class. It's not mind-blowing again, so again, probably C+, B-. But there's a couple of guys that are pushing you up into that sort of B category as well. So we'll see what happens. I don't see the Jets really getting off by the bottom, and given how competitive the AFC East can be as well. You've got Buffalo, New England, even Miami as well. Although they may fall off a little bit given the quarterback situation, as I discussed earlier with Malik Willis. I don't feel like he's the guy that's going to take Miami to the point where they're challenging for the AFC East crown. And if I'm proved wrong, as I say, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But as I say, you guys respect me for my honesty, and that's what I always promise to give you. So that's my honest opinions there on the New York Jets. Now let's stay in the East, shall we? And talk about another playoff team now. The winners of the NFC East at 11-6 last year, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, when you're talking about Philly and what they've kind of brought into the mix, I'm just going to pull that up for you now. The Philadelphia Eagles. They have another quite small class, but it's names that you want to hear. So they've signed Wad-l, cornerback, for 1 year and up to $15 million. And they've also signed tight end Johnny Munt, also on a 1 year deal. They've retained Grant Calcaterra, that's the tight end, but the terms have not been disclosed. And they have also made a record-breaking $78 million 3-year deal to extend defensive tackle Jordan Davis. And I mean, between him and Jalen Carter, if you're only going to extend one, that was very much a no-brainer for me. So just taking into account even Jordan Davis and Tariq Woolen, I'm going to give the Philadelphia Eagles a B. As I say, you were enough to win your division last year. So with that being said, you again were one of these teams that were on the cusp of a playoff run. So not too many areas to improve. But as I say, one of the biggest needs for Philadelphia was making sure that Jordan Davis was re-signed. And they have done that. So kudos to the Eagles for that one. And now let's go up to the AFC North for Team 27. And we're really getting down to it now. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Another division champion, winners in the AFC North, also reaching the wild card at 10-7 there. So for the Pittsburgh Steelers class for this free agency, it's a bit of an interesting one. So I love the fact that for 3 years, $69 million, you're bringing in Michael Pittman Jr. Fantastic signing, wide receiver from the Colts. You've also brought in Jamel Dean at 3 years, $36.5 million. You've got Rico Dowdle running back from the Panthers, 2 years, $12.25 million. And you've got punter Cam Johnson for a year as well there. In terms of retentions, you've got Cameron Hayward, 2 years, $32.25, with roughly half of that guaranteed. You have cornerback Asante Samuel signing a 1 year, $4 million extension. You've got Cole Holcomb at linebacker signing a 2 year, $5 million extension. And then you have a 1 year extension for Izeze Otomewo on the defensive line. And yes, Maggie, I am doing my best to get through it. We've only got a few teams left to go. I feel like I'm almost trying to hurry through it in a way, because, as I say, I have a lot more Falcons business to take care of in the other 2 episodes that are coming sort of tonight, tomorrow morning. But your boy promised you a late one, and he promised to get these out. So, as I say, we keep pushing. But yeah, let's get back to our own division, our own conference, I should say, in the NFC. But let's head out west to San Francisco and talk about the 49ers. So again, quite a small class, bringing in Mike Evans, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, for 3 years, up to $60.4 million, but only 16 of which is guaranteed because they're shoring up their bets. As we say, Mike Evans, we don't know how much he has left in the tank. We don't know if he even lasts another 3 years, but you got all, you know how it goes. You got to get that money. So all credit to Mike Evans, now a 49er. You've also signed offensive tackle Vidarian Lowe for 2 years and up to $12 million, while retaining kicker Eddie Pinheiro and linebacker Garrett Wad-l. Now, again, outside of Evans, which I would call a B, this is why you have to bring him in, is the fact that you are releasing Brandon Ayuk. And as I say, the most likely suitor, I don't know if they have. So if they have done by now, you can confirm it to me in the chat if you know. But I think he's supposed to be going to Washington. Whether or not that's a done deal yet, I don't know. But I do know that Brandon Ayuk has been released from the 49ers. So that's why San Francisco as I say, have shored up and made the choice to obviously bring in Mike Evans. So let's stay in the West. With that being said, before I do move on, though, I do want to give a final grade. And as I say, it's again, it had to shore up someone that you were losing, so that would knock it down for me. But I'll give you a C plus because I feel like even a year or two of Mike Evans, it's still Mike Evans. Yes, he's only going to run you quick slants, but he's very, 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 very good at quick slants. So yeah, by all means, get that money, get your last payday before you ride off into the sunset, and if not into Canton, then at least into the Hall of Very Good. And as I say, it's tough as a diehard Falcons fan to give flowers to divisional rivals, but he's not a divisional rival anymore. So salute, Mike. But yeah, without further ado, let's move on now. As I say, keep it in the West and go to the defending Super Bowl champions, Seattle Seahawks. 14-3, NFC West champions, and the Super Bowl 60 champions. Now, what can you really say about Seattle? They did lose Kenneth Walker III to Kansas City, which is a painful loss because if I had to choose a second college football team to support after my Longhorns, it would be the Spartans of Michigan State. Much to the distress of Don, if he's watching, who is a Michigan Wolverine, but what he doesn't know if he's not watching won't hurt him or me. So yeah, but Kenneth Walker is a fantastic running back. He's dynamic, and losing him is going to be a bit of an issue. But with all that being said, here's your Seattle class so far. So they've made no signing, but they have retained wide receiver Rashid Shaheed on a 3-year, $51 million contract. That is with $34.7 million guaranteed. You've also extended cornerback Josh Jobe on a 3-year, $24 million deal. Linebacker Drake Thomas on a 2-year, $8 million deal. Running back George Holani has been tendered at 1.075, and safety Ty Okada has been tendered there at 1.145 mil. So that's your Seattle Seahawks. And I'm going to give that probably a C minus. Outside of the Shaheed extension, which had to happen, it just made good business sense. Losing Kenneth Walker is going to sting, as I say, so, and you've not really yet made the moves to replace him. So for that reason, I don't really feel confident. It's not an out-and-out fail, but you do need to probably make some moves now to shore up the positions where you have lost. Especially if you plan on going back to back and in a division that's as sort of up and down as the NFC West can be, you don't know how that dice is going to fall. So yeah, that's what I would say about Seattle. Now moving on, only a few more teams left to go before we can wrap this up. I do hope you've all enjoyed it, and as I say, I'm going to put timestamps on the video so that you can find your teams if you're only want to catch a certain amount of content, see your team, see what I've got to say. But here we go. We're going to go back to the NFC South one more time before we finish up with Team 30, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 8-9, second in the NFC South in 2025. Now, the NFC South, as I've said many, many times, it's not the most glamorous, objectively glamorous division in football. It's a gritty one, but one or two games can really make all the difference. So here's what Tampa Bay have done so far. They've signed Kenneth Gainwell and Alex Anzalone. Those are two fantastic additions to kind of, as I say, shore up in terms of your depth. Kenneth Gainwell, a great second choice running back. You're only guaranteeing him 10 million of that. And obviously Alex Anzalone to shore up from the loss of Devin Lloyd as well makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's again nothing mind blowing, but a solid sort of B minus sort of grade there for Tampa Bay. And I'm looking forward to seeing those guys because, as I say, Baker made it abundantly clear that he has an axe to grind. And Yeah, I'm here for it. So we'll see what happens because we need to see you twice a year, as always. So let's hope that we can flip things, and we'll be sitting atop the South. But as I say, a lot can change between now and the end of the season. I will say that much. And now we come into the penultimate team on my breakdown here. So Team 31. Going back to the South one more time before we finish this up, the AFC South this time. And again, one of the worst teams in football at the moment. So you have the Tennessee Titans, the bottom dwellers of the AFC South at 3-14 last year. And let's spend a few minutes talking about what they have done to try and get themselves off of the bottom of the division. So here we go. They have brought in wide receiver Wandale Robinson on a 70 million 4-year deal. They've brought defensive tackle John Franklin Myers, 3 years, 63 million. They've spent another $60 million on a 3-year deal with cornerback Alontae Taylor. Cornerback Cordell Flott is coming in on a 3-year, $45 million. Tight end Daniel Bellinger on a 3-year, $24 million. You've got centre Austin Schlottman coming in on a 2-year, $9 million contract. You've got Jordan Elliott at defensive tackle for 2 years, $9 million. You've got offensive guard Cordell Volson for 1 year, up to $4.2 million. You've got a backup QB coming in Mitchell Trubisky for 2 years. You've also got Josh Williams at cornerback for 2 years. And as we say, another doubler there with Jordan Elliott at D tackle. And in addition to that, you've also got Morgan Cox retained as your long snapper. You've got defensive lineman CJ Ravenel, and you've also got Garrett Dellinger, offensive guard. Cox on a 1-year deal, and the terms have not been disclosed yet for the other two. So I feel like it's an interesting class. Again, it's right in that mix of being sort of B- tier because they're not mind-blowing players. But for Tennessee, I think Wandale Robinson, I think John Franklin Myers, I think definitely Alontae Taylor as well are players who can give you more dynamism on defense as well. John Franklin Myers is just a stud in the middle as well. Tall, strong, everything you want in that prototypical nose tackle. Myers is going to bring in Tennessee, given that obviously they're moving on now from Tavondre Sweat. That's going to be something to look out for going forward. And now let's wrap things up with the last team of our little breakdown tonight, and that being the third place team in the NFC East in the season just gone, the 5-12 Washington Commanders. Now, Washington are an interesting team. As I say, they finished 5-12, but I don't feel like they're a terrible team. And we'll see if they've managed to improve any through this off-season process. So they've brought in Odafe Owe, edge, at 4 years and $100 million. They've also brought in linebacker Leo Chenal for 3 years and just under 25 million. Offensive tackle Tim Settle for 3 years and 24, and cornerback Amik Robertson, for 2 years and $16 million. You also have quite a long list here of retentions. So offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil for 2 years, which makes a lot of sense, as I say, even at his advanced age, like Trent Williams, the ageless wonders, they keep that high level of play up. I don't know how they sustain it, but they do. So yeah, 2 years, 60 mil makes great sense. You've also extended QB Marcus Mariota for a year. Andrew Wiley, offensive lineman, for 2 years. Nick Allegretti for 2 years, another offensive lineman there. Punter Tress Way on a 1 year. The rest of these will all be 1-year deals. You've got wide receiver Traylon Burks, kicker Drake Moody, defensive end Drake Jackson, defensive tackle Shai Tuttle, and defensive end Dietrich Wise. So that is the Washington Commanders. And as I say, I'm just going to bring that back up real quick. With that being said, Owe and Chenal are going to be hit or miss signings. Let's be real. I feel like Odafe is a very talented edge, but it's how much support is he going to get? So as I say, by shoring up and bringing in Leo Chenal as well, you're going to allow him to, as I say, avoid any multiple team blocks. Just obviously get that man free, and see what he can do for you. But I feel like he's going to be maybe another 5 sack a year guy. It's not going to be world beating numbers, as I say. He's not going to break any records, but it's certainly a good place to a good place to be in if you're Washington going forward. And as I say, the NFC East being what it is, you never quite know who's gonna finish the season on top. So with that being said, I'll give Washington probably a B minus. So that's kind of my grades, my thoughts. It's been a fun hour and 15 minutes breaking everything down for you. If there's anything else that you want me to kind of cover, if there's anything I've missed, as I say, please let me know down in the chat below. But yeah, as I say, pay close attention to the channel if you have, because as I say, it's the first of a triple header tonight. A lot of good stuff to get through, and I will be returning to Falcons centric content. So there's a lot going to be going on, and you've joined at just the right time. Georgia, Texas boy, shut up, shout out, brother. It's great to have you down in the chat. I've got a lot coming forward tonight, so I'm about to get back into some Falcons content very, very soon. Just finishing up here, so that now I've broken down all 32 teams, all of the off-season moves so far, as I say, not counting the last few hours, because as I say, it's been a late one, and the minute you put these videos out, they're also out of date in a way, such as the beauty of the free agency period and the off season. So I will be back with you probably in around about 45 minutes time for the second part of the show, which is going to be called A Farewell to Kings. And that's where I'm going to basically go back in more detail about the Falcons move so far this off season, how I feel, give some guys their flowers, welcome in some of the new talent, all that good stuff. So with all that being said, I also want to hear from you guys. As I say, I make these videos to put back my thoughts out into the world, and also show my love to the city of Atlanta, and the wider NFL community around the world as well. So obviously, as such, it means a lot to me to hear your thoughts, your comments, and your takes. So I want to know who you feel are winning or losing this off-season process. Who's made the best free agency or trade signings? And if you're a supporter, a diehard of any of the 32 teams, and you're checking this out, I want to know how you feel specifically about where your squad is sitting right now. Do you feel you have more work to do, or do you feel like you're in that mix? So it's something that I'd be interested to hear y'all kind of break down whenever you do get to see this. But yeah, as I say, it's been a labour of love putting this together. It's been a pleasure to kind of break down every team and tell you how I feel. But it's not just about how I feel. What do you think? Have you any thoughts? And if so, you know exactly where to leave them. But until I see you very soon for the next episode, I bid you adieu. I thank you all so much for the love, the support. Continue to share this out so that we get more eyes on the solo channel. And as I say, for now, this has been The Real Spill, episode 4, the fun of free agency, and some detailed dissections for all 32 teams. I will catch you again very, very soon. But until then, always remember that this is where you come for real sports talk, and I promise you will always get it 100% unfiltered. Thank you, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.